first piano concerto is known for its grandeur, its stormy intensity, and its staggering emotional weight. It's a symphony in all but name, a work forged in the fire of personal tragedy. But hidden in the heart of its first movement may be something far more intimate, a secret musical love letter to Clara Schumann. And remarkably, this connection has gone largely unnoticed. What you're about to hear is perhaps a novel discovery, one that even scholars and musicians have overlooked, and I've been holding onto this for quite a couple of years now, but I think it's time I share it with the public. So if you're a scholar, researcher, or content creator who wants to use this, please don't forget to credit me. Let's rewind to 1846. Clara Schumann, already one of the most celebrated pianists of her time, composed her Piano Trio in G minor, a work of deep introspection filled with sighing phrases and burning lyricism. And in the first movement, buried within the texture, she writes a melody that, if we listen closely, sounds eerily familiar. To add more context, she completed this trio during a difficult summer in Norderney while caring for her ailing husband, Robert, and even suffering a personal tragedy herself, a miscarriage. Despite the hardship, Clara produced a passionate four-movement work that would later be considered one of her greatest compositions. In fact, her trio was so impressive that it directly influenced Robert's own piano trio in D minor the following year. Clara's music was ahead of its time. When it was premiered, she was arguably as renowned a composer as Robert. However, history didn't give Clara's trio the spotlight it deserved. After Robert wrote his trios, Clara grew self-conscious about her own. She set her trio aside, and over time, it slipped into relative obscurity. It wasn't often performed for many decades, a fact that likely helped this Brahms-Clara connection to hide in plain sight. Now, let's fast forward 8 years. It's 1854, and Brahms is shattered. His mentor, Robert Schumann, has just attempted suicide and has been committed to an asylum. Brahms, only 21 years old, is left with the responsibility of supporting Clara, who is now alone with 8 children. And in the midst of this emotional hurricane, he begins work on his first piano concerto. When the orchestra roars its fury and the piano finally enters, listen. There it is. The breathless ascent followed by a sighing descent. It's Clara's theme, reimagined on a grander, more dramatic scale. But Brahms doesn't just quote it, he takes it on a journey. And the fascinating thing, no one seems to have pointed this out before. Despite the vast amount of analysis on Brahms and Clara's relationship, this particular link between their music has been overlooked. Let's break this down even further. Clara's theme is delicate, woven into the texture of a chamber trio, rising gently and resolving naturally. Brahms, however, takes that same rising contour, but instead of resolving smoothly, he makes it more dramatic, more searching. The harmony underneath Clara's phrase is warm, grounded in G minor. But Brahms, he immediately destabilizes it, placing the theme over shifting harmonies, pulling it between minor and major, between strength and uncertainty. Now let's talk about the key relationship. Clara's original theme is in G minor, a key associated with deep expressiveness and noble melancholy. Brahms shifts it to D minor, a key he often reserved for moments of tragedy and defiance. But these two keys share a close relationship. D minor is a dominant of G minor, meaning Brahms essentially places Clara's theme in a state of unresolved tension. In Clara's trio, the phrase resolved naturally within its harmonic framework. In Brahms's hands, however, the resolution is always in flux, uncertain and constantly shifting. And then Brahms does something radical. He doesn't just restate the theme, he breaks it. The gentle lyricism of Clara's motif becomes a cry, hammered in octaves, almost aggressive in its intensity. Where Clara's melody sighs, Brahms' melody shouts. It's as if he's taking her theme and transforming it into something far larger than life, something that embodies not just love, but struggle, defiance, and grief. Then, a moment of reflection. The theme reappears, but now in a hushed, searching form. Hesitant and vulnerable. Brahms pulls apart its very fabric, questioning its identity. What was once Clara's intimate phrase is now wandering, lost in harmonic uncertainty. Is this grief, longing, a farewell? And then, at the height of the movement, Brahms drives the theme to its breaking point. The orchestra surges forward, hammering the motif in relentless octaves. Clara's tender melody has now been pushed to its limits. It's no longer a melody, it's a cry of anguish, twisted into something tragic, almost unrecognizable in its fury. At the end of this vast struggle, the theme returns, not triumphant, but weary, softened. It's no longer a cry, it's a memory. The octaves dissolve, the theme once hammered into the heavens now falls gently back to earth, as if Brahms himself is letting go. Perhaps in his own way, this was Brahms's way of holding on to Clara forever, letting her voice live within his music. Was this intentional? Brahms never spoke of it, but he never needed to. The weight of their relationship, the unspoken emotions, the music itself, it tells the story. Brahms never married, and Clara remained the gravitational center of his life. If there was ever a message hidden in his music, it was meant for her. And the fact that this parallel between their themes has remained unnoticed only deepens the mystery. Why didn't anyone notice this? The simple answer is historical bias and blind spots. Clara's trio in G minor, despite being a masterpiece, was long neglected in concert halls and scholarship. After Clara's lifetime, it was rarely played. Critics and historians for many years tended to focus on Clara primarily as Robert's wife or Brahms's friend, not as a composer with her own voice. Because of that, few people studied their compositions in depth or compared them to the titans of the repertoire. So even though Brahms himself knew and loved Clara's trio, he was among the pianists who performed it, and surely he studied it privately too. Later generations just didn't have Clara's music on their radar. They missed the clues. Instead, when analyzing Brahms' Piano Concerto No. 1, scholars talked about Beethoven's influence or the influence of Robert Schumann's style, which are definitely there, but Clara's fingerprint in the piece went largely unnoticed. It also doesn't help that Brahms, a very private man, never explicitly said, "Oh, I borrowed this idea from Clara." He was far too discreet and proud for that. If anything, any homage to Clara in his music was likely intended to be a secret, personal, like a hidden message only she would recognize. Only in recent decades, as Clara Schumann's works have been rediscovered and performed more, have listeners started to connect the dots. We're living in a time when Clara is finally getting her due as a composer. As that happens, these kinds of musical relationships are coming to light. It's a novelty to us now to propose that Brahms might have been directly influenced by Clara's trio in G minor when writing his concerto. And that novelty is exactly why this is so exciting. It adds a new layer to the Brahms-Clara love story. Not only did he write music for her, as in the Adagio, he may have also woven her own musical ideas into the very fabric of his concerto. It's like discovering a conversation hidden in the notes. A conversation that's been there for over 160 years, unheard by most. What do you think? Did Brahms encode a secret message to Clara in his music? Has this connection truly gone unnoticed? Let me know in the comments. These videos are hit with copyright as soon as I publish them here and are ineligible for monetization. So if you enjoyed this content and would like to support me in making more, click the link below to buy me a coffee. And don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell icon button, and I'll see you in the next one.